Napier committee agenda. I have the same apologies from Councillor Brown. I have a mover for those. Councillor Crown, seconded by Councillor Mawson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Any conflicts of interests? There being none, I would like to invite members of our public forum up to speak to us. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come up the front. We have Mike and Dave from the Guthrie Smith Trust. And perhaps they could start by introducing themselves and their positions. That would be fantastic.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is David Allen. I'm the chair of the Guthrie Smith Trust, and with me is Mike Halliday, who's our deputy chair. So what I'd like to just describe to you, I've adopted the approach that we're starting absolutely from scratch, and that some of you will obviously have some knowledge, hopefully, of the Guthrie Smith Trust and others who may not. So I'll just run through who we are, where we are, what we do and offer the Hawke's Bay community, our connection with Napier, how we operate, and our current development plans. The Guthrie Smith Trust is a charitable trust, and we operate with a wholly owned limited liability company, which is Guthrie Smith Tutera Limited. As trustees, we're charged with developing the Tutera property as a place of recreation and education. We run it by way of a group of trustees, and we have a resident curator. Where we are, I'm sure you're familiar, but for the purposes of illustrating, to the right of that map was 1,000 acres of, in round terms, of land owned by the Trust in past years, and that was sold to the Hawke's Bay Regional Council and is now Tutera Country Park. To the left of the lake, virtually all the land on the left bordering the lake's edge is owned by the Trust. There's 90 hectares, and we were recently gifted some additional land to the north of us. And behind us is what was originally also part of Tutera Station, which is 1,000 acres, give or take in round terms, of forestry, which is an investment, Roger Dickey's forestry investment company. What we do and offer the Hawke's Bay community. Our outdoor education centre is Outdoors Mark certified. That's because of we have a high ropes course, which I think is the only one in Hawke's Bay now operational. We have an Arboretum with the planting actually started back in 2002. So the trees now are really starting to demonstrate to be a great asset. We started environmental education in 2013, which takes place and involves the Arboretum for the students. We also have one of the cottages on the property, which was originally a farm cottage, and then was subsequently just rented out, and we converted that to a booker batch, and that has been a tremendous success and is generating far more income for the benefit of the Trust. We have a public barbecue and picnic shelters for visitors, and one of those is in the midst of the Arboretum. This is where the education centre is situated, and you can see behind it, below the forest, is what we call the hangar, and that was where Guthrie Smith decided many years ago, over 120 years ago, that he would like to see what would happen if he just allowed it to restore it, and it's just a great stand of native bush now. terms of environmental education, we have an environmental education coordinator who supports schools, and the schools who come are principally primary and intermediate students, but we do have secondary school involvement as well. We developed a resource folder with activities for schools, and the schools can just then determine, the teachers can determine just what they wish to, in which way they wish to approach their activities. We have interpretation signage throughout the Arboretum for the benefit of the schools and actually for visitors as well. There's a lot to be learned. In terms of the Arboretum, it is planted by geographical regions of the world. Plantings are physically labelled where possible, and all are recorded on a GPS and cloud-based system. The system is mobile coverage capable in the sense that in due course people will be able to, with their mobile devices, be able to identify trees and get all the relevant information and growth habits and so forth. There are mown tracks throughout the Arboretum, and the Arboretum, Lake Tutera itself and the surrounds in the district represent an exceptional resource for the community from a breadth of biodiversity perspective, and that's where we really have pushed to be the educational centre for matters relating to biodiversity and so forth, so that we don't have duplication within our region. Just some quick pictures for you here of the Arboretum, and obviously these are autumn shots, but it gives you a feel for just how it looks. The tracks are wide. The main track is certainly capable of vehicular access, and there's another one. This is typical of one of the barbecue shelters. This one is actually right by the public barbecue. The fencing there is just there to keep stock out and can be taken away. In terms of our connection with yourselves in Napier, we've had 17 Napier schools have had camps or day programs over the last 3 years, despite the COVID influence of late, so that we have a strong connection from the schools, but as a trust, we're very conscious we haven't had a great connection with yourselves. Moving on to how we operate, we have a curator, George Christensen, and very fortunate to have he and his wife. They are just doing a superb job, and they run our operations via the company. Funding of our operations is via income from our investment portfolio. We have approximately $2 million invested, which represents the proceeds, basically, of the previous sales of the land that I outlined at the start. And we certainly need that just for our operations. So all development is totally reliant on philanthropic and community support. Our current staffing is at capacity, and additional outside instructors are contracted for school activities, and that's for things like the high ropes course and so forth. All our trustees give their time voluntarily. Our major sources of funds for development have come from charitable trusts, the Hastings District Council, as we are part, obviously, of that electoral district, and the Hawke's Bay Regional Council and PanPac, who have helped us both physically with tree removal and clearance and so forth, and also with the Conservation Week. Our current development plans, the homestead, Guthrie Smith's homestead, we plan to turn, which is where our curator and his wife live currently, we're planning to turn that into a visitor centre, and the reason for that is the Lotteries Commission funded a restoration report for the homestead, but no funding is likely to be forthcoming unless we have it available to the public. And so that's the direction we're taking. We have a wetland development underway, well, subject to resource consent at the moment, but it's planned in the gifted block, which is called the Sanctuary, to the north of our former property. We need public toilets. We obviously have sufficient toilets for the students in the education centre, but we're getting to the stage now we're open on Sundays from October to May to the public at no charge, and so that's an important development for us. Water storage, we've had to increase our capacity there, and that is being developed right now. Social media, most of our trustees are a bit like me, they're getting on, and social media is a slightly different proposition, and we need to get stuck into it big time, and we're working on that at the moment. And finally, part of our development plans, we'd love you all to come up and actually physically see what we have to offer, and develop a closer relationship with the council and for the benefit of Napier and the region in itself. Thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce ourselves and the Trust's activities to you.
Thank you very much, Dave and Mike, for your presentation. It's fantastic to see the amount of work you're doing up there. I don't think there's a child in Ahuriri that hasn't been to Guthrie Smith Camp at some stage in their growing up. And obviously, like you mentioned, being in the Hastings district, but still quite close to Napier, we have a strong affiliation. I know some of our councillors even carry the name Crystal, which is well known up your way. So I'd just like to open up if there were any questions of the Trust. Councillor Tapanu.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for that presentation. I drive past the Trust land on a weekly basis, so but I have never actually gone in the gates myself, as I'm from Wairoa, so I wasn't educated here in Napier, so I haven't had the same enriching opportunities as our Napier residents, but it's always intrigued me. So my question is more around personal access and ability. So thank you for the invitation. What is the grade of the slopes in the walk? How onerous is it? It might be right for you young fellas, but I'm just conscious that for myself, I struggle with slopes. So are day walkers welcome? Is it manageable by everybody? And by extension, if I had a group that wanted to, as you do with your schools, have a day excursion there, are those types of opportunities also available?
Most definitely. And there are two areas that would be about it that you would classify as quite steep, but they're very short stretches. But as a general statement, it's very easy to walk around and get around with the slopes. We do also have the ability to take vehicles through. So if there are people who are compromised, we can they can still get a tremendous level of enjoyment by from a vehicle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Crystal.
As the Deputy Mayor said, close association with Tūtera. I grew up there and we still have a farm there, which was part of Guthrie Smith originally. So when people go up on a Sunday, because I've been up with 3 children to camp and been there numerous times, I actually haven't done a Sunday walk. Is it guided or do you go by yourself?
You go by yourself. We have maps available and donation boxes.
Okay. So it's a self-walk?
Yes, absolutely. But we're very happy to arrange, if you had a group but as a general principle, people just rolling up on a Sunday are just there to enjoy themselves. And there would be someone at the information centre. There's a little information centre there when people arrive to help with any questions or queries at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just another question. So with your visitor centre, I guess you would have to then staff that Would that be
Yes.
open more than just Sundays, or would that be, what's your plans?
We haven't gone that far yet. What we're actually planning to do is the homestead is Category 1 listed as a historical place, but not for architectural reasons. It's actually for the fact that Guthrie Smith himself is, I'm sure you're all aware, is world-renowned as a naturalist, and his book and so forth. And so we plan, well, the current thinking, put it that way, is that we will determine if we can maintain the heart of the building and incorporate it into a visitor centre and offer it. So we can have a place, a repository for a lot of his historical items and books and so forth, and people can actually get a feeling of exactly where it was he lived and take them into that space. And then we may have lecture theatres or maybe in time a cafe, but current thinking is along the lines that we could perhaps do it in a way that we could do it stage by stage, but preserve the absolute heart of the building in perpetuity.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave and Mike, for your presentation. That's fantastic. We appreciate the invitation to visit you in autumn when the Arboretum is at its most beautiful, I'm sure. And we'll ask you just to work with our governance team. We'll make a note of that and make an invitation to our calendars in autumn. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll be up there next month.
Good idea.
All right, we have one more public forum. Is Paul Redman joining us? Yeah. Kia ora, Paul. If you'd like to come to the front here, it'd be fantastic. So Paul joins us from Save Our Beacons. Also joined by Linda Peterson.
Bristol? Yeah. From the old navigation days. Yeah, we read it. They submitted to the LTP.
Oh, well,
Welcome, Linda and Paul. Thank you for joining us.
thank you. We being heard here, okay?
Absolutely.
Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Thank you for your time. Mayor Kirsten, if I may refer to you as that. Madam Chairman and members of the City Council. Just a small presentation for you for our restoration process for the Napier Beacons. Just a quick introduction of our small group. My name is Paul Redman. I'm the chairman. Linda here with me, Linda Patterson, is our secretary. Leslie Jensen is our researcher and treasurer. And we have Selwyn Hawthorne as an advisor. The history. The land was gazetted to the Beacons in 1905 and the build was completed in 1907. The Beacons were erected in that 06-07 period by the Ferro Cement Concrete Company of Australasia. It was won by the seashore, and the rear beacon was on an island in the lagoon, or what we knew as the inner harbour. They were the first light towers in New Zealand to be constructed in reinforced concrete, and the first of their kind to be constructed anywhere in the world. They were owned and operated by the then Napier Harbour Board. When the land came up in the 1931 earthquake and the rear taller beacon developed a severe lean, it had to be jacked back upright. They were decommissioned in 1975. The lights can no longer be used for navigation, although the structures are still shown on maritime charts. The beacons were threatened with demolition in the 1970s by Army engineers as an exercise, but it was called off at the last minute when they realised the demolition had not been gazetted and the beacons were thankfully saved. In 1988, when the Napier Harbour Board restructured, the Hawke's Bay Regional Council took over the port. The beacons were lost from all records. In 1987, Landcorp, now Pāmu, and DOC were formed, with the rear beacon standing on Landcorp land remaining as farmland. The front beacon stands on land that was separated from the farm and given stewardship status because the wetland potentially had conservation values and was transferred to DOC to manage. As far as we have been advised, all the land on which the beacons sit is part of a treaty settlement for Mana Ahuriri, which is yet to be passed through Parliament. There have been many attempts to restore the beacons by various individuals and groups, including myself and my mum. Our group was started by enthusiasts with various skills. Interest has been high and social media posts have shown a lot of support for the restoration. The first thing we did was engage with various stakeholders to establish their interest and support for the project. We have had input and positive support from the Port of Napier, Pāmu, formerly Landcorp, the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, the Napier City Council, the Heritage Team, the Department of Conservation, Hawke's Bay Airport Authority and Heritage Hawke's Bay, and many prominent local businesses. We have been in contact with Mana Ahuriri and have had verbal support from them, and once their treaty settlement is settled, we can engage formally to see how we can work together. Leslie Jensen has done a huge amount of work searching archives and records and talking to various organisations to establish who owns the structures. As far as we can tell, nobody has them registered as assets on their books. It was heartening to see Napier City Council list them as heritage items on the draft district plan, and we supported that with a submission, which we now know means that they will be protected from demolition. Of course, before we do any major fundraising, we needed to establish firstly that the structures can be restored, and our advice has been that they can be, and secondly, what the costs might be. We have been very lucky to receive seed funding from Max Patmoy and also Alexander Construction. And we have Mark Hamilton as an advisor on the committee who has developed for us a project process which includes scoping and assessment of the work and engaging design partners and further down the track a main contractor. He is currently seeking design fee proposals from local engineering firms. In the meantime, given the amount of interest, the Hawke's Bay Regional Council has contracted Opus WSP to do an engineering assessment of the beacons, and we are awaiting their report. And the Port of Napier has offered us their expertise and advice in design, repair and concrete reconstruction. We do not have a definite costing for the restoration work yet. A figure of $500,000 has been suggested, but that is yet to be confirmed, and we know there will be other costs on top of that to develop the area and run the project. Once we know our costs, our time and our timelines, we will get into our fundraising. Our fundraising strategy is being developed, which includes obtaining support from local community and also larger sums from philanthropic identities and charitable funders, as well as donations in kind and materials and skills. To that end, we are currently setting up a charitable trust and have also engaged a conservation engineer who is developing a conservation plan which can be used to support our fundraising efforts with larger funders. But it will also be an everlasting record of all the information, including history, construction and ongoing care of the beacons. As you can see, they are deteriorating over that period of time. They are currently an eyesore, quite frankly. They look neglected and send a poor message to those entering the area about our care for our historic assets and our city and our region. Quite frankly, they are an embarrassment. Our advice is that the concrete structures can be repaired. Interestingly, many people are unaware that they are in fact concrete and imagine them to be of timber construction. What we're asking from the Napier City Council. Firstly, thank you to Fleur Lincoln and the Heritage Team for their advice and support. We would like to continue to engage with them. We would like assistance and advice with building and resource consenting. We would ask that the Council support the project by waiving any council fees and associated with the restoration project. We will require funding for the conservation plan. We are aware that councils can support the costs of these plans and intend to apply the Napier City Council for assistance, and we hope that you will look favourably on that application. And we would hope that the councillors here today would endorse the restoration project and, of course, work with us to restore the structures while we still can. To restore the beacons. The land surrounding the beacons is historically, culturally and archaeologically significant. The area, known as Kiri Kiri Tirau, is of historical significance to the local iwi. It was a traditional place where they gathered kaimoana. Pātiki, or flounder, were found in abundance in the estuary by the lagoons. When James Cook sailed into Hawke's Bay in October 1769, the entrance to the inner harbour lagoon was at Kiri Kiri Rau. James Cook referred to Te Whanga o Rotutu as a pretty lake of salt water. Those developing the aerodrome recognised and still recognise their significance. They named the airport the Beacons Aerodrome in 1957. The Beacons represent early Hawke's Bay and New Zealand maritime history. Over the years, since 1907, the Beacons have been silent witness to many events. They guided thousands of ships safely into the harbour and made their contribution to the growing economy of Napier. Their construction was unique. From the moment the lights were lit, they could be seen from many kilometres away, from land as well, of course, from well out to sea. They are iconic, recognised by thousands travelling on State Highway 2 and on the local walking paths and cycleways in the area. They have been landmarks for generations, welcoming and farewelling people entering and leaving the district. We are passionate about this project and know that the work needs to be done now, right now, before it is too late. You saw the condition they were in. We hope that you will support our efforts to bring these old ladies back to stand proudly once again as the icons that they once were. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul and Linda, and congratulations to the work that you've done so far. It's clear to see that you've put a lot of effort into both convening the right people in your organisation and getting all of those reports and bits and pieces underway so that you can achieve what you're setting out to with the Beacons, which I think is a very worthy cause. Thank you for that. If we have any questions from councillors, Councillor Price.
Thanks for that presentation. Paul, would the lights be able to be working, and would they ever be used as a navigation tool again?
No, they can't be, Pricey. As a lit navigation thing, they're actually unsafe because they may be aware that the channel that they brought ships in has had to be redesigned because they found a rock in the middle of it. But what we envisage doing, probably having something like a 40-watt bulb in the top of them so you could see them, but we would light them strategically from underneath so they'd be more decoratively lit to show up the lattice work. But no, they can't be used as a navigation aid ever again. But as I mentioned, they are still shown on current hard maritime charts, and they can be used in daytime for reference. But no, they won't be used to lead ships into the channel again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crystal, then Councillor Bogue.
I had the good fortune of seeing these when they were going, when I used to drive back to Tutira.
Yeah.
And my mum too has been a big advocate for getting these, so she'll be very happy to hear about this. What's your time frame that you're looking at to, you've got to get it going and start some restoration?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and when you do get into these things, I mean, initially I think people thought it would be a few blokes out there on a Sunday afternoon with a paintbrush, but it's not quite that. So the time with a lot of these things is the consenting and the investigation process, and we are well into that with the help of our lady Leslie. We would sort of hope to be about the middle of the next year to make some sort of start with construction, with the scaffolding that perhaps that goes with that. Talking to Mark, he's got a process in place, but it does depend on the resourcing, the consenting. We don't envisage having huge amounts of trouble with the funding once we can get it rolling. We've kept it reasonably low profile just for the moment until we have those starting processes covered. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So Councillor Bogue, followed by Councillor Mawson.
Thank you. Did you not, Paul, make a submission to our long-term plan on this? Was it this long-term plan or the one before? And I just wondered if you could just walk us through what the outcome of that was.
Yes, we did. We made a submission to your district plan to supporting the Beacons as being listed on the heritage listing.
Okay, were you similarly asking for funding and support, and did you receive any?
No, we didn't ask for any funding. We just endorsed their listing on as a heritage item on the plan.
Thanks for that reminder.
Thank you. Councillor Mawson, Councillor McGrath, Councillor Tupney. And
Yeah,
then
through
I
the chair.
think those might be last questions too.
On that note, is there some way, if someone's watching this from the public arena or myself, I'd like to contribute, do you ever give it a little page or some way that someone can donate money at this stage?
At this stage, no. We're really waiting till we get out the trust set up.
Okay.
We have had offers actually already of small contributions, which are helpful, as more or less as petty cash, if you can imagine paying secretaries and stuff like that. But no, we're really waiting till we have our charitable trust set up before we go forward seriously asking for money, and we will be.
Thank you.
Councillor McGrath, Councillor Tupney.
Yeah, just a couple of questions here. Paul, who owns the beacons themselves? Were you unsure, or you know for sure?
No, we don't know for sure. Nobody really wants to own the beacons.
Yeah.
Our research is still ongoing in finding who really owns them. Nobody has them on their books as such. It's quite a strange one, but they don't really have an owner. The land that they're on has owners, as we said, Doc and the farm or part will be Pambu and may well become part of the Ahuriri Trust, but the structures themselves don't appear to be owned. That's pretty much how it is. Yeah.
But can I just add, we are looking to approach Lynn's to have them listed on their, can't remember what the word is, you know when they have their land or government-owned land, that have them listed on there, and we're going to work to make sure that they're at least listed, even though we can't identify an owner.
Yeah, okay. And I guess the second one is more to council. What would the process be going forward? Now these guys have approached us. What do we do or put in place?
Yeah, Councillor. Sorry, not Councillor Richard. Wrong. You're Councillor Richard. Richard Miniker.
Just through the chair, I think probably the best instance is that we need to kind of unravel this a little bit in terms of what an appropriate contribution might be from the council and how that would work. So things like, with resource consenting fees and so forth, that might have to be offset with a grant in some way rather than a waiving of fees, just because of the way we're structured. So suggestion there is that you keep working with Fleur Lincoln in the first instance, and then if the timing's right, we can bring it back to council.
Yep, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So my question actually is very similar to Councillor McGrath's. You've got these assets which are in their own right still got a question mark around them on land owned by different parties. So my question is, are all the parties that you've been talking to, because your presentation was really encouraging around your engagement of all those who are interested, so are all the parties you're talking to, and I'm particularly interested in the Department of Conservation, are they all keen to hold hands and sit around the campfire around this kaupapa?
It seems very much so, from what we've had, the correspondence that we've had with them. As I say, Mana Ahuriri are still yet to be approached. They've got a little bit on just at the moment, and they are unable to come back to us. So that's the only people that we see as major stakeholders that we haven't really spoken with. One of our gentlemen has spoken with them, and the first talks were positive. There was definitely nothing negative about it, but we haven't gone forward with anything formal with Mana Ahuriri at this stage. But the Port of Napier are the big ones that have come back on board, which has been great, because initially, several years ago, they weren't so keen, but they are very keen now. So yeah, all those names that I mentioned have been very positive.
Thank you.
And regional council, of course. The ones that I mentioned that I read out there they've all been very positive response from them.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much, Linda and Paul, for your presentation. And you certainly have our endorsement for the kaupapa. It's great to see the works being worked through to get the beacons restored. So congratulations.
Lovely. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Are there any further announcements by the Mayor? None from myself. I will call for any minor matters not on the agenda. There being none, any announcements by management? There being none, can I ask for a mover and seconder that the minutes of Thursday the 30th of September be taken as a true and correct record? Moved by Councillor Bogue, seconded by Councillor Crystal. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carried. All right, welcome Luke, who is presenting our first paper to us, the Resource Consent Activity Update. Thank you, Luke.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
By way of update from the resource consenting team, I can advise that we've once again seen another significant increase in the number of applications the team has received in the last 6-week period since our last committee meeting, up from 33 in the same time last year to 54 this year. It's reassuring to see that 70% of those applications that we've received are residential in nature, so the continued growth is very reassuring. To provide you an update on two more significant applications that we've received, one being 9 Church Road and the other being 100 Ericsson Road. 9 Church Road is a 1 into 5 lot subdivision with multi-units, proposing 5 units on that site. That application is currently under assessment. A further information request has been issued by council and we're awaiting a response for that. With regards to 100 Ericsson Road, that forms part of stage 2 Tiawa land development. It's a 16 lot subdivision and it's currently under assessment with a determination expected to be made shortly. I would welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Luke, for the update report. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Crystal.
Just with 9 Church Road, I notice it's right next door to 13A that we just gave about with the easement onto the park. Are they going to be affected by that as well?
Through the chair, sorry, what do you mean?
The sewerage easement on Taradale Park that was in the previous meeting is right next door to number 9. So we gave permission to do an easement off number 13.
Through the chair, so that wouldn't relate to this property itself, it's the adjoining property, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it shouldn't have any effect on this proposal.
Oh, okay. I just wondered if they needed access to it as well.
No, that...
I already have it.
That's a question.
No, through the chair, I would expect that their servicing would be in line with the current servicing to that lot. It would just be extended for the additional 4 units that are proposed.
Okay, thank you. If I don't have any more questions, can I ask for a mover of the officer's recommendation to receive the report? Moved by Councillor Mawson, seconded by Councillor Crown. Any comment to the report? Councillor Tapani.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I actually just have one small question, if I may.
Yes.
Luke, I notice in the last few rounds of reports we've had a steady increase monthly on resource consents. Has that trend continued?
Through the chair, yes it has. We're up, in comparison to the same time, as I said last year, we're up from 33 to 54, so about 60-something%.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion to the paper, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 2, the amendments to the parking bylaw, and welcome Rachel Horton, our Manager of Regulatory Solutions, to speak to this paper.
Kia ora koutou. So the bylaw amendment is largely administrative and it's to change our parking bylaw to support our transition to pay-by-plate meters. We've worked through the current bylaw and have updated the language to accommodate both existing meters and pay-by-plate meters as we work through that transition. The key changes that we're proposing are to remove the term ticket meter and utilising the broader definition of parking meter. We seek your resolution to resolve that ticket metered zones are defined as metered zones in the bylaw, obviously removing the reference to tickets, which won't be required with new pay-by-plate meters. And the final change is the removal of a provision where there is no requirement for payment of more than in a motorcycle space if it's occupied by more than 2 motorcycles. Obviously, with lollipop meters, the first cyclist would pay, the second cyclist wouldn't be able to pay because it was a lollipop meter. Under the new pay-by-plate meters, all users of parking spaces can now pay. So really, the significance and engagement of this bylaw change is very minor in nature, and it largely relates to terminology. We've assessed that there's no consultation required as a result, and we're looking for you to resolve to make these changes under the current bylaw.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any questions? Councillor Simpson.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report and the updated bylaw. Of reading through that, it was a bit of an education. I will do better in the future. There's certainly some detail in there that I'm quite sure most of our parking users don't know. You've touched on the motorcycles. That was going to be one of my questions anyway, because I don't think it's actually clear in there, because I looked for reason to see, does it actually say that both motorcycles will in the future need to pay? And I'm not actually sure it's that clear. So you might want to look at that, because that was the bit that caught me out. I thought, oh, okay, so what happens in the future when it's by plate? If one of the motorcycles drives off and the other one's left there, obviously they'll be due for an infringement notice. So I'm not sure that there is actually specificity around the fact that both motorcycles would need to do their doodacky on the machine. But other than that, there's a couple of typos, but I'll bring them up with you later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Mayor Wise.
Thank you, through the chair, and I guess again following on from the motorbike conversation, it just suddenly occurred to me, do we actually charge for parking for the bicycle spaces, cages that we have around the city?
No, they're free for use.
They're free for use.
Yep.
Okay.
Ride a bike, ride for free. Okay, if there's no... Councillor Tapani?
It's a minor question through you, Madam Chair. Great to see this being updated to make it more flexible and workable. Interested in when we might touch on the next stage of this process of the transition into the meters, please, or the digital platform.
Oh yeah, thanks for asking that. I was meant to update you. So we're just finalising the contract with the provider at this point. Our draft implementation plan is starting in February. It'll probably starting in the CBD and moving then out to Taradale. It'll take about 8 weeks implementation, and the plan works around any events and points, where there are events on in the city that might cause disruption. So we're very mindful of that. And where there are events, we are asking our provider to work early hours of the morning and after close of business in the afternoons. So that's our draft plan at this point. There has been some delay with the provider in terms of parts for the pay-by-plate machines that they're putting together in their factory in Auckland, and that's the reason for some of the delay.
Supplementary? Those delays, nothing risk associated with any of those supply demands? We're not expecting any significant shifts in the timetabling of activity?
No, not in terms of that. They now have all the parts, and our council is sort of first off the list for our implementation.
And one final question, if I may. When the concept was first brought to council, it was not too long after Hastings had implemented a similar model. There was quite a lot of comments around our senior bracket having concerns around engaging and using this new medium, and there was comments from council that we would love to see some engagement happening in that sector of our community, so there was a level of comfort for them. Was there any feedback on that engagement?
Yes, so we have quite a, I would say, quite a comprehensive plan to engage the public. And in terms of people who may need, support to understand and use the meters and transition, we will have meters installed in all of the libraries and in our customer service centre. We'll have people around the areas in which the meters have been installed to help out for, first time that they use it. There'll be video tutorials and other support available. So we'll also be reaching out to groups like Age Concern and doing presentations to those groups if they are wanting that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks,
Rachel.
If there's no further questions, I'll ask for a mover of the officer's recommendation that we adopt the parking control bylaw as amended and resolve that all ticket metering zones are now metering zones, determine that the amended parking control bylaw will be effective from the date council adopts the bylaw, and determines that the amendments do not give rise to any implications under the Bill of Rights, and the amended parking bylaw is the most appropriate way of addressing and implementing of the pay-by-plate meters, etc. If I have a mover for the officer's recommendation, I'm happy to move that from the chair and seconded from Councillor Tapani. Any discussion to the paper bylaw? There being none, all those in favour please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Rachel. We'll now move on to item 3, our library and civic plan. Page 27. We'll invite Fleur Lincoln and Darren Gillies to speak to this paper.
Thank you, tēnā koutou. This paper provides a summary of the feedback received from the public consultation phase of the project and seeks the adoption of the library and civic area plan. The draft library and civic area plan was released for public feedback on Monday the 20th of September, with feedback closing on the Friday the 15th of October 2021. Although the team had planned a series of public consultation events during this period in order to provide that one-on-one face time, the shift to alert level 2 meant that this consultation was not possible. All consultation was undertaken online with the exception of a few in-person or Zoom presentations at special interest group meetings. So a total of 101 feedback forms were submitted during the consultation period. Feedback on the plan in its entirety was generally positive, with 80% of submitters agreeing with the plan and significant support, that being around 86%, for the library being part of stage 1. Following consideration of feedback received, no substantive changes were made to that draft document. The Library and Civic Area Plan offers a strategic direction for the development of the library and civic precinct, publicly endorsed in a way that is fiscally and operationally sensible, prioritises the needs of the community and takes advantages of the site that it offers. The 9 founding principles will ensure the space is designed to be inclusive, accessible, sustainable and beautiful, and will instill a strong sense of place. The delivery of this project in stages will provide the necessary time to understand what the future needs of Council's administrative officers are, while delivering on those facilities and services that we know are of high need for the community now and for future generations. The development of the plan has followed a robust process with a significant level of support from our key mana whenua partners and stakeholders throughout. Further feedback sought during the public consultation phase has endorsed support for the plan and the ideas that it contains. The project team is currently working on the demolition program to enable the delivery of the first stage, and a new team has been formed to deliver the design brief and business case phase of that project, with Darren Gillies Darren Gillies will be leading. Darren is available here to answer any questions that you may have around the future phases of this work. And finally, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of those who have been involved in the creation of this plan, including council staff, our consultants, our mana whenua partners, our stakeholder groups and our advisory group. Councillors Tanya Wright and Rhonda Crystal have been instrumental members of the advisory group, which has benefited from the great leadership of the advisory group chair and Deputy Mayor Annette Brosnan. Thank you. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you, Fleur. And a great summary of where the feedback has got us in this quite exciting stage of adopting the final plan. I'll open it up for questions from councillors, if there are any. Councillor Tuffney.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Fantastic work. Concur the comments from Deputy Mayor. Thank you for that awesome summary. Were there any new insights there or any new risks or items that you'd like to bring to the attention of Council as a result of the consultation that you'd like to elevate above the written report?
Sure. Thank you for that question through Madam Chair. No, I think it was really just endorsing the ideas that were already within the area plan. Particularly, we had quite a lot of responses around wanting to have the open space, you know, that connection with the outdoors came through quite strongly. Add anything to that?
Through the chair, just that it mirrored really similarly the feedback we got from the library strategy from 2 years ago. It was very, very similar.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Great concept. I think it's looking really good so far, and it's needed that we get on with it. My question relates really to, in the context of COP26, and although it's early stages in this design concept, are we considering net zero construction or occupation of this building as part of our concepts going forward?
Thank you. I think a really relevant question. Fleur, were you best placed, or Darren best placed to?
Through the chair, that's where demolition comes in as well, because that connects really closely to what kind of rating any future development will have. So we're currently tying up the scoping for that demolition so we can progress that. But yes, we need to look at what star rating it has.
Thank you. All right, I can't see any further questions. Oh, Councillor Bogue.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. There was a comment about the inclusion of governance facilities not getting strong support. And the question was, did people really understand what that meant? And I was just wondering if you could just explain exactly what it does mean, seeing you're up there. Thanks.
Through the chair, I think you're right, there was a little bit of confusion. What we mean essentially is chambers and also the general public face, so clinician rooms for councillors as well would come under what was better probably phrased as democratic services.
We did provide some additional information following, we knew that there was a bit of confusion around that, and we did provide some additional information to the public around what we meant by this within that consultation period. So yeah, we did our best to try and clarify that one.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. That's supplementary to Councillor Bogue. So did that result in any change in input or feedback from those participants? No. No complaints either, I assume? Cool.
No complaints.
All right. Thank you. I'll ask for a mover for the paper. Officer's recommendation, Councillor Crystal, seconded by Councillor Wright, both on the working group. I think that's really appropriate. Thank you, councillors. Would either of you like to make a comment? Councillor Crystal.
I just think it's great that we've got to this stage, and I know so much work over the years pre my time on council has gone into this, and it's we're really looking forward to seeing this progress, and I know Napier is looking forward to seeing this progress, so sooner the better.
Councillor Wright.
I'd just like to congratulate Fleur and your team, and particularly the Deputy Mayor for their work on this project. It's been a really robust process. Everyone has had plenty of opportunity to have input into it, and I think we're going to see a great result from all of those efforts. and I know the people of Napier are very keen to get it going, and particularly to get a library back in its own space. And so it's good to see progress now happening, and once again, congratulations to everyone involved.
If there's no further speakers, I'll just make a quick comment from myself, and that is that it's been a pleasure working with the working group and all of our stakeholders in the wānanga and the community consultation processes to get the plan to this stage. I think there's been a whole lot of boats moving at the same time, and the one on demo and the one on detailed design and scoping and business cases are all moving at the same time. So plenty of feet moving quickly under the water on this one, which I know will set us up for quick, staging as well, which as my colleagues have said is what the community want to see. So I'm really looking forward to the next stage of having those demolition decisions come across our desk as well, and I know we'll need to make a decision around stage 2 as part of how we manage that demolition as well, so preparing councillors for that. That being all said, I think I will put the motion. So all those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Fleur to stay, and we will move on to paper 4, which will probably be our last paper before we take a break, and that is the update on the Ahuriri Regional Park project. I'd also like to acknowledge in the room we have the General Manager of Biodiversity Hawke's Bay, Debbie Monaghan, and we also have Angie Denby from the Ahuriri Protection Society joining us in support of this paper. Councillor Hinawai Ormsby gives her apologies. She had to leave slightly earlier than we got to this paper. So thank you, Fleur.
Thank you. Okay, so the purpose of this report is to update Council on progress made toward what is currently known as the Ahuriri Regional Park project, and to seek the endorsement of Council to confirm the priorities for the future use and development of Lagoon Farm in a way that positions Napier as a leader in climate resilience and city sustainability. The report also seeks to address how critical partnerships with Hawke's Bay Regional Council and Mana Ahuriri can be fostered through the stages of the park master planning and implementation. And this project gives both councils a unique opportunity to showcase how Napier City can demonstrate climate resilience and sustainability outcomes in a highly visible way, transforming an area right in the middle of the city from pasture to a place that will help us keep our people dry during extreme weather events, clean the stormwater, and actively foster environmental improvements to the estuary. The project has substantial budget identified in both the Napier City Council's and Regional Council's long-term plans, and it's now at a crucial stage where the next steps need to be clearly identified and programmed. The project team now seeks endorsement from elected officials that the regional park be a platform for climate resilience and city sustainability, that full investigation work commence to design the extent and location of any floodwater detention infrastructure, that the site legally known as Lagoon Farm be confirmed as the boundary of the regional park, that Council ensure that the zoning for Lagoon Farm is appropriate in the draft district plan and that no further encumbrances are placed on the land, that work commence on collating data sets into a full storyboard to underpin master plan development, that Council develop a master plan for the purposes of full community consultation on what is intended for the regional park, including the order of works, that Napier City Council and the Regional Council engage with Mana Ahuriri as a key partner in this project, that the long-term plan budgets be reviewed in light of the data sets and investigations around water detention and stormwater in particular, and that the review should be done as part of the master plan development in conjunction with the Regional Council and their LTP budget allocation. Noting that the recent announcement of the Three Waters review may mean that Council may wish to consider bringing this work forward. And finally, that an independent project manager be appointed as soon as practical to take us through this work. I'm quite fresh to this project, so Richard and I obviously are here to answer any questions you might have, and hopefully Rich will be able to help me out with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fleur. I might make a couple of introductory comments on this paper myself, councillors. You'll recall when we went through the LTP process, we had a significant number of interested, affected stakeholder partners that are interested in how this project will proceed. We are at a stage and acknowledging this is new ground for us in terms of a partnership with regional council and hopefully working through a partnership with Mana Ahuriri as well on this project where we deliver something through co-design, and that there are a significant number of complicating inputs that will go into the development of this park from scientific expertise right across the scale, really, that we've got to a point where we are bringing back to you. I think we've had a little bit of legal advice that you see in the paper, so we're bringing back to you confirmation of the area, confirmation, I suppose, in A, of our non-negotiables that we are looking to deliver as a city council in this project, and then just endorsing that next step of a project manager, which will be jointly funded probably through the regional council as well, and that will look to lead us through a proper process that will bring all those stakeholders with us as well as we start the journey of creating a master plan. Those are my introductory comments, and I'd like to open it up if there are any questions. Councillor Tapanu, start us off.
Ngā mihi. Thank you through you, Madam Chair. So my question pertains to really, is anything set in concrete at this stage? When and how is there scope to continue to evolve concepts? Could you give us an indicator on that? Because I note that in the paper there is mention of shifting of berms, which corresponds with some work at HBRC. And so there are concerns around tidal areas being created that were previously non-tidal areas. And so at what stage do some of these things become concrete or pretty fixed in the plan?
Oh, you want to take that?
I know it's early stages, so it's a...
Perhaps I should answer that one. I think the way that we're conceiving this is, you know, we had something in the Ahuriri master plan, which was quite high level, and now we're coming a step down to try and unravel what this really means. And I guess the main thing at the moment, what we've landed on, is that we have something really important to do on that site for our city. And that needs to be master planned effectively to be able to get the detail around how that actually lands on site, which is the next step, which will answer those questions of detail really that will come part of that.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. My concerns relate to haste. I absolutely agree that the proposal is 100% what we need, and it's how we need to treat our stormwater. But my concern is that we will not have the science to back the master plan in the next 12 months. We're in year 2 of a 3-year assessment of the componentry of the stormwater. So effectively, we've got another year to run until that science is complete, and the design of the what do they call it? The plantings that will, what do they call it? Freshen the water.
Riparian.
Yep. No, there was a word about the water, the cleaning of the water. Polishing, that's the one, sorry. So my concern is that if we rush into a master plan in the next 12 months, it won't be supported by good science, because it's that science that's going to actually dictate how large that planting zone is, how much water volume it can handle, and then on top of that, we've got our stormwater master plan still being peer reviewed. Last year, well, in fact, every decade, this city has experienced a significant flood, so we know there's going to be more coming. probably more frequently than they have in the past. We know that last year we had a huge volume of water sitting in the Wycliffe and Maraenui environment that through this concept will be transported and stored. We don't actually fully understand the volumes or the metrics around that at the moment, and I'm just not sure we're in the right position to start master planning without then having to go and rescope that again after we get that information, bearing in mind the funding for this in our LTP has been identified for year 8, 9 and 10, so we actually have 7 years in which to complete that process thoroughly and properly without risk. And I just think this desire to have the master plan completed within the next 12 months for a report back to council is probably a little bit premature in the case of that sequencing, and that sequencing is actually identified in the resolution development. So I think we just have to be careful here about sequence and haste.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Simpson, and I will pass over to possibly some members of our infrastructure team to provide comment. From my perspective, we've also got to remember that this is not just a master plan to deliver those key stormwater outcomes, but there are a number of other outcomes that are being thrown in the mix at this stage, and the master planning process is the way that we will pull those out and figure out what is right to be in there and what is not. Also highlighting that our funding, capital funding, may come in year 7, the regional council funding comes in year 3, so we need to meet that time frame for the development of some capital spend as well. And I will pass over, I'm not even sure if Steph may be the correct one to comment, but I have received assurance that we will get a accurate enough of a picture in terms of space that we can block out an appropriate hectareage in the master planning process, and that the detail will come in future years of how the design will work, which is where the critical factors are. But I'll leave that over to our Chief Executive.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think you covered that really well. So with respect back to the questions and comments of Councillor Simpson, I think it is really important for us to take that next step and understand the staging of what goes where and when. I think there is a genuine desire for some quick wins in this project, but what that looks like still needs to be worked through fully. As the Deputy Mayor has stated, one of those priorities is understanding the parcels of land, for example, as to the number of hectares that would need to be set aside for each. And that is all work in progress at the moment.
Thank you. And just one further comment to that end. I note that we're seeing that recorded on the Sustainable Napier project, and the engineers had marked that as on track, that particular piece of work around that high level spacing.
And the other risk, through you, Madam Chair, is the risk around who may ultimately be owning and managing and operating that Three Waters storage capacity, and what their risk aversion might be around health and safety and around protection of idiots and open water, and the fact that we then have to look at the design of that, because if a third-party authority might suddenly come back one day and say we want a 6-foot-high barbed wire fence around it, then we really don't want that sitting next to Prevenson Drive if we want to keep that area attractive. So I think there's a combination of things we really need to be very careful in our considerations to make sure that it does end up being an attractive and a functional regional park.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur that there is a lot of work to be done in that. And just noting that we did receive legal advice that you've seen the commentary in the report about, and we are recommending that we keep it in its current legal boundaries and fee simple, so you can read between the lines there in terms of what we describe this asset as in the interim. Is there any further questions or comments? Councillor McGrath.
Yeah, just through the chair, I'd just like to make comment that we currently are running it as a working farm, and considerations will have to be made around that when you start taking chunks away or bits away, whether it is still viable or not. And also we have the blow carts operating out of an area there, and they've invested heavily, and I'd like to think that we work with them and going forward.
I wouldn't mind having some comment from our Director City Strategy on the particular blow cart lease situation.
Yeah, the lease for the blow carts was always short term for that very reason. But yes, obviously, we need to work with them as we go forward, and certainly in terms of the farm, that is absolutely correct too. So that's all part of the need really to get a project manager that firmly is looking at all parts of the project going forward to unravel all those things, including, you know, what's going on there currently as part of the master planning process.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further comments, I'll just give everyone a minute to read over the officer's recommendations. We have A through D. A is essentially setting out our deliverables that we're looking the park to achieve around sustainability, flood mitigation, stormwater quality, biodiversity, estuarine environment restoration. B is to endorse that boundary, the legal boundary of the park. C is to endorse the preparation of the master plan and the appointment of an independent project manager. And D is endorsing the project governance structure to also be investigated as a next step. I'm happy to move that from the chair. We have a seconder and Mayor Wise. No further comments from myself. Any from you?
I guess just wanting to comment on how exciting this particular project is for our whole region, in fact, and we heard from some of our fellow councillors across the way at Hawke's Bay Regional Council this morning about wanting to work in collaboration with us and have councils support each other, particularly in projects such as this, which look at climate resilience, look at our stormwater system, look at environmental positive outcomes in that space. So I think that we've got a long way to go. This is the very beginning of the project, obviously, and there are a lot of technicalities to work through, but considering the importance of it, this master plan is a vital part of the process, and the Hawke's Bay Regional Council does have significant funding commencing from year 3, so I look forward to the joint committee being formed and kicking off and keeping us updated on progress on this.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. Anyone else like to make any further comments? There being none, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, Fleur
Thank you.
and Richard. We'll now take a break for lunch and we'll be back at 1 o'clock.
Interesting statistics.